The planet Velox Prime was a world of endless, flat steppes and horizon-spanning grasslands. It was terrain perfectly suited for speed, which made it the favored killing ground of the Veilen, also known to terrified human infantry as the Chrono-Kin. The Veilen did not fight in real time. Through a unique biological hypermetabolism and innate temporal manipulation, they existed 5 seconds ahead of the rest of the universe. To a human soldier, a Veilen warrior wasn't a target. It was a blurring phantom, a streak of colored light that moved faster than the eye could track, faster than a turret could traverse, and faster than fear itself could register. A battle against the Veilen wasn't a fight, it was an execution performed in fast forward. A human platoon would be walking on patrol, and a second later they would all be dead, their throats slit by monomolecular blades, with no sign of the enemy except a dissipating heat haze on the horizon. They didn't use guns. They considered ranged weapons to be cowardly tools for slow walkers. They preferred the intimacy of the blade, relying on their chronal speed to close the distance before the enemy could even raise their rifles. Highblade ZXX stood on a ridge overlooking the human forward operating base. To his accelerated perception, the human soldiers below were statues made of meat, moving with agonizing slowness. He watched a human sentry take a sip of coffee. In the time it took the liquid to touch the man's lips, ZXX could have run down the hill, killed him and returned to the ridge 3 times over. "Look at them," ZXX vibrated to his pack, his voice a high-frequency chirp unintelligible to human ears. They are trapped in the amber of time. They rely on their crude eyes and their sluggish reflexes. They are already dead, they just haven't had time to fall down yet. Today we shall paint the grass red with their sloth. The first month of the Velox campaign was the costliest ground war in human history. The Terran forces tried everything. They used automated sentry guns with AI targeting, the Veilen outran the servos. They used wide-area laser grids. The Veilen zipped between the beams during the nanosecond flicker rates. They used tactical nukes. The Veilen simply ran out of the blast radius before the shockwave propagated. "We can't hit them, General," Colonel Jebediah Stone yelled, slamming his fist onto the tactical table in the command bunker. "I have reports of entire battalions wiped out in under 10 seconds. The troopers are terrified. They're shooting at shadows and getting butchered by ghosts." General Martha Boomer Cartwright didn't look up from the map of the vast central steppe known as the Silence Flats. She was a combat engineer by trade, a woman who believed that any tactical problem could be solved with the correct application of high explosives and geography. "They're fast, Jep." "We get it," Cartwright said, her voice calm and grating like grinding gears. "They move quicker than we can think. Quicker than our machines can track. So stop trying to track them." She pointed a thick finger at the massive, flat expanse on the map. "They like speed. They need open ground to get that momentum up. They think this flat land is their greatest advantage." She looked up at the colonel, a grim smile spreading across her scarred face. "It's not an advantage, Colonel. It's a canvas. And we're going to paint a masterpiece." Cartwright ordered a full retreat. The human army pulled back, abandoning their fortified positions and moving out into the middle of the Silence Flats. The Veilen watched, amused. They interpreted the move as desperation, a terrified herd moving into the open to die. Highblade ZXX watched as the human engineers spent 3 days digging in the dirt, laying miles of strange, flat cabling and burying thousands of flat, disc-shaped objects just beneath the sod. "They dig holes," ZXX laughed. "They think the dirt will save them. They prepare their own graves. Let us oblige them." On the dawn of the 4th day, the Veilen horde, 50,000 Chrono-Kin warriors, gathered at the edge of the flats. In the distance, the human army waited behind a low earthen berm, seemingly exposed and vulnerable. ZXX initiated the chrono dash. To the Veilen, the world shifted. The colors became supersaturated. The wind stopped moving. The human soldiers in the distance froze in place. ZXX and his horde surged forward, accelerating to speeds that defied physics. They became a tidal wave of bladed light, crossing a mile of ground in a heartbeat. They were an unstoppable force of kinetic death, rushing toward the static human line. General Cartwright watched the horizon on her monitor. She couldn't see them, of course. She just saw the distant grass suddenly flatten as if crushed by an invisible steamroller moving at Mach 2. "Here they come," she murmured, holding a device that looked like a dead man's switch. "Wait for it. Wait until they're committed." The Veilen horde reached the center of the flats, fully committed to the charge, their speed at its peak. They were mere seconds away from the human lines in real time, but an eternity away in their own perception. "Now," Cartwright whispered. She didn't aim. She just flipped a single switch. She activated the chronotripwire grid. The silence flats were not empty. 3 square miles in front of the human position, the engineers had buried 50,000 omnidirectional pressure mines. These weren't standard landmines. They weren't triggered by a specific weight. They were linked to a seismic lattice that turned the entire ground into one giant hypersensitive trigger pad. If anything moved across that ground faster than a walking pace, the grid activated. And when it activated, it didn't just blow up the mine under the target's foot. It blew up every mine in the grid simultaneously. ZYXX was leading the charge when the world ended. His leading foot touched the grass. The seismic sensor registered the micro-impact at superspeed. The signal traveled at the speed of light across the human grid. In real time, it sounded like the crack of doom, a single deafening crump that shook the planet's crust as 3 square miles of dirt instantly turned into fire and shrapnel. But in the Veilen's accelerated time perception, it was a slow-motion nightmare of inescapable horror. ZYXX saw the ground beneath him rupture. He saw the dirt expanding upwards, saw the flash of the detonation begin to bloom. His chronodash mind screamed at him to dodge, to run, to evade. But he was moving too fast to stop. His own incredible momentum betrayed him. He couldn't turn. He couldn't stop on a dime. He was committed to a trajectory that was now entirely composed of exploding ordnance. To the humans watching from the bunkers, the battlefield was a sudden, blinding sheet of fire and dust. To the Veilen, it was a meat grinder they were running into at full speed. The shrapnel didn't have to chase them. They ran into the shrapnel cloud faster than it was expanding. Thousands of Veilen warriors, moving faster than bullets, shredded themselves against a wall of fiery debris of their own making. Their incredible speed only served to multiply the kinetic impact of every piece of jagged metal they hit. ZYXX tried to blink sideways, but the explosions were everywhere. There was no safe space. The entire flatland was a kill box. He saw his brethren, beautiful streaks of light, suddenly disintegrate into red mist as they impacted the blast waves. Then the shockwave hit him. Even in his accelerated state, he couldn't outrun the physics of a 50-kiloton synchronized detonation enveloping him from all sides. The roar lasted for 10 seconds. When the smoke cleared, the silence flats were gone. In their place was a massive, smoking crater field, churned into black mud and littered with the shimmering, broken remains of the Veilen horde. Not a single Veilen warrior reached the human lines. General Cartwright walked out from behind the berm, surveying the devastation. The air smelled of cordite and ozone. The silence on the steppe was absolute. Colonel Stone stood beside her, stunned, looking at the total annihilation of an enemy that had seemed invincible an hour ago. They just ran right into it, Stone whispered. They were so fast they couldn't stop. Cartwright lit a cigar and took a deep drag, looking out over her masterpiece of combat engineering. That's the problem with moving faster than everyone else, Colonel, Cartwright said grimly. When you hit a wall, you hit it a hell of a lot harder. She kicked a piece of shimmering alien armor half buried in the dirt. They thought speed was a superpower. They forgot that in this universe if you touch the ground you play by the ground's rules. And on my battlefields the ground is usually rigged to blow. Humanity had proven the ultimate tactical HFY truth. You can be the fastest thing alive. You can move so quickly that you are essentially invisible. You can dodge bullets and lasers. But you cannot dodge the ground you are running on. If you have to step, we can kill you. We don't need to be faster than you. We just need to make sure that everywhere you want to go is already exploding. This has been Apex Sci-Fi. Watch your step. The ground is angry. If you enjoyed this explosive victory over the speedster aliens, hit that like button. Comment below. What's the best way to defeat a superfast enemy without being fast yourself? Subscribe for the next story in the New Frontier saga. The Molten Deep. The dust has settled. The stopwatch is broken.